Hi, I'm Rod Kurtz. This is Bridge City News. Here are some of the top stories we've been following through the day today.
The Bank of Canada has decided to leave its trend-setting rate right where it is, but says Mideast tensions and U.S. tariffs are making future decisions more difficult. Plus, the crew of Artemis II, including Canadian Jeremy Hansen, are welcomed to the White House. And while Whoop Up Days is still a few months away, we will introduce you to the 2026 Parade Marshal, introduced today.
Your nation, your province, your southern Alberta. From the heart of Lethbridge, it's Bridge City News.
Thanks for joining us. The Bank of Canada held its benchmark interest rate steady today at 2.25% for a fourth consecutive time as it waits for some clarity on some major international issues. The bank's forecast for overall growth hasn't changed much from the central bank's last outlook in January, with Governor Tiff Macklem saying he expects inflation to cool early next year. But the unknown is the ongoing war in the Middle East.
Until the war, we expected inflation to stay close to the 2% target. But sharply higher gasoline prices are now pushing up inflation. CPI inflation rose from 1.8% in February to 2.4% in March. Core inflation has been easing and held steady just above 2% in March. The proportion of the components of the CPI basket rising faster than 3% has also declined in recent months. So far, there is little evidence that higher oil prices have fed through to other goods and services prices more broadly. But it is early days, and we will be watching this closely. Based on recent market expectations, oil prices are assumed to decline from an average of about $90 a barrel in the second quarter to about $75 a barrel by the middle of next year. If that happens, inflation should peak around 3% in April and then ease back to the 2% target by early next year.
Macklem says besides the U.S. and Israeli war with Iran, the other unknown is the ongoing review of the CUSMA free trade agreement. And as if there isn't enough instability in oil markets, now the United Arab Emirates has announced it's leaving OPEC effective on Friday, stripping the oil cartel of its third largest producer and further weakening its leverage over global oil supplies and prices. We get more from Elaine Carroll with the Associated Press.
OPEC stands for the Organization of the Petroleum Exporting Countries. It currently has 12 members, counting the UAE, that hold more than 80% of the world's proven oil reserves. The group aims to regulate oil prices by coordinating increases or decreases in production. The goal has been to keep prices high enough so member governments can balance their budgets and reap the benefits of their natural resources, but not so high as to cause a recession in consuming countries or to halt energy-consuming activity. The UAE is seeking more independence in how much oil it sells. Cartels keep prices higher, but they restrict members' earnings and market share against non-cartel members. There has been long-standing friction between the UAE and Saudi Arabia, the biggest OPEC producer and de facto leader of the cartel.
Prime Minister Mark Carney and Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre went toe-to-toe today in the Commons, the day after the Liberals released their economic update. Despite a lower deficit than forecast in November's budget, Poilievre says the Liberal spending spree is unprecedented.
This Liberal Prime Minister has done the impossible, and that is he has doubled the deficit that Trudeau left behind. More cost, more debt, more taxes, more on the national credit card, and more interest payments for Canadians. So once again, with Canadians spending $3,000 per family on interest for the debt, is there any limit on the Liberal credit card?
Yeah. The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, in the face of a tariff war, in the face of an actual war, this government has reduced the deficit by $11 billion. This government has reduced the level of debt across the entire forecast horizon. This government is on track to deliver $60 billion of savings for Canadians. This government's on track to reduce spending on consultants by 20%. This government will build Canada strong.
Today's exchange was the first time Carney and Poilievre faced off in the House since the Liberals secured a majority government. The families of Tumbler Ridge shooting victims suing OpenAI will likely seek $1 billion. Chicago-based lawyer Jay Edelson represents some of the families in their suit against OpenAI and its founder, Sam Altman. OpenAI did not go to police last year when staff identified troubling online behavior by the 18-year-old shooter months before 8 people were gunned down. The plaintiffs accused the artificial intelligence company and its founder of failing to warn authorities, as well as aiding and abetting the shooting. Canadian Jeremy Hansen and the other Artemis II astronauts met with U.S. President Donald Trump at the White House today. 3 weeks ago, Hansen, Reed Wiseman, Victor Glover, and Christina Cook splashed down in the Pacific Ocean following a 10-day mission traveling around the moon.
Everybody I knew, they wanted to see the launch, and they especially wanted to see a successful landing. And Jared, I want to congratulate you, what you've done at NASA. I made a great choice. And if you have any questions for any of us, feel free to ask. But we're very proud of these people. They have unbelievable courage, unbelievable. A lot of other things too, by the way. To get in there, you have to be very smart.
Hansen became the first non-American to travel beyond low Earth orbit. Trump invited the astronauts to the White House when he spoke with them just hours after their spaceship traveled around the far side of the moon. Well, back here at home, the Alberta government has announced the next steps in a speed limit pilot project on one of the province's busiest highways. The Queen Elizabeth II Highway, or QE2 as we call it, runs between Edmonton and Calgary. The speed limit's been 110 kilometers an hour for many years, but the province has been considering a plan to up that speed limit to 120 kilometers an hour.
And so starting today, drivers will see the new 120-kilometer speed limit sign at a stretch just beginning south of the Leduc Commercial Vehicle Inspection Station, extending 22 kilometers south along Highway 2. Now, in this corridor, we have made significant safety investments, including longer ramps and speed-sloped paving. Now, during the speed pilot, we'll closely monitor traffic flow, driver behavior, and safety outcomes, ensuring that decisions are grounded in real-world data.
The Transportation Department started surveying Albertans about the idea back in November. Dreeshen says over 50,000 Albertans responded, and almost 70% thought that rural divided highways should be set at 120 kilometers per hour. Well, to deal with Alberta's aging population, the government's pumping $400 million into continuing care. The government says the funding will support 11 shovel-ready projects, which will build more than 1,100 net new continuing care spaces for Albertans.
These spaces are more than just care facilities. They are homes. These are 1,100 homes. Today's investment means 1,100 more Alberta seniors get to age with dignity in the communities that they have helped build, supported by care practitioners and surrounded by those who love them the most. These projects are focused in communities with the most need, where current continuing care spaces aren't able to keep up with the growing seniors population. Projects in Edmonton, in Calgary, Cochrane, Red Deer, Wetaskiwin, and right here at Salem Manor in Leduc. We're not funding ideas. We are funding projects that are ready to move forward.
And Nixon says when these new spaces are added to what's already in the works, there will be roughly 3,000 new continuing care spaces opened up in the next 18 months. On Wednesday, Joseph Scow, the Alberta Minister for Jobs, Economy, Trade and Immigration, met in Lethbridge with local Chamber of Commerce and other community leaders. Attendees shared their thoughts on the current state of local business and trade, with Scow stressing the importance of job creation. He also gave his thoughts on the federal government's spring economic update on Tuesday, which aims to recruit 80 to 100,000 skilled trade workers by 2031.
I haven't seen all the details from the announcement yet, but I'm happy to hear that the federal government is focused on employment, particularly employment of Canadians. I've always said that Albertans should have first crack at Alberta jobs. And as a province that is leading the country by leaps and bounds above the rest of the other jurisdictions, we created 101,000 jobs over the last year, from March of last year to March of this year. We are showing the rest of the country that Alberta is creating those jobs. We know what it takes to create jobs. The circumstances around that is things like keeping taxes low and cutting red tape. So while I'm grateful the federal government is concerned with job creation, they're just taking Alberta's lead as we've already been leading. We've been ahead of that charge for a long time. For Lethbridge, making sure that there is a strong, capable, educated workforce here is crucial for the success of the entire province. Understanding that Southern Alberta is a huge agriculture hub, it's an ag corridor, and as the trade minister, I am keenly aware of how important getting these products are to external markets around the world.
While the 2026 edition of Whoop Up Days doesn't arrive until August, organizers have already announced who will lead the annual parade. Knud Peterson has been named the 2026 parade marshal, becoming the first person selected through Excite Lethbridge's new community nomination program. Peterson will lead the official kickoff of the celebrations through the streets of Lethbridge on August the 18th.
Pretty overwhelming for me to be doing stuff like this. It's parade marshal it's up there with, being named general. When I told Paul that I'd be really honored to do it, I'm just living out my dream, and then it's not everybody that is able to do that. I consider myself extremely lucky.
There is just no one who's willing to show up for his community more than Knud does. He is at any event that you go to. He's at every sporting event. He's supporting minor sports. He's supporting important community initiatives, and he's not afraid to get out there and try to make an actual difference. Like, he doesn't just show up. He goes out and he gets donations. He puts his name forward. He helps make things happen. I wasn't involved in the nomination process, but I was sure happy when I saw his name on the list, and then when our committee selected him, I was beaming.
Peterson was one of more than a dozen high-quality nominations received from across the community. Well, you might have noticed some art rolling along city streets in Lethbridge. We're talking about a pair of public buses that are wrapped in beautiful artwork as part of the Jane's Ride Tours program. The project is presented by the Allied Arts Council of Lethbridge in partnership with the city. The artwork was designed by local artists Kellen Spencer and Gillian Gertz.
So this is all part of the Public Art Master Plan here in Lethbridge. This project was created in 2025. The call went out and we selected 2 artists, local artists here in Lethbridge, and their artwork are displayed here on the buses now. And 2 buses were used as part of the project. We encourage everybody out there that sees them rolling around to get a picture of them. Hashtag ArtBusYQL and Allied Arts Council and Lethbridge Public Art, please. This will be the official unveiling of the buses, and the community is welcome to come and be a part of the celebrations as part of Jane's Walk. It's on May 3rd, it's a Sunday. At noon, we'll be hearing from one of the local artists whose work is actually on the bus. We're gonna hop on the buses and take everybody for a tour and have a look at some public art throughout Sikohkatuk.
The celebration will take place at the Lethbridge Terminal. And we go from Jane's Ride to Jane's Walk. The walks are held in cities around the world. And here in Lethbridge, residents can take part in free walks, exploring the history, places, and stories that shape everyday urban life. And through the simple act of walking together and discussing what makes a neighborhood, Jane's Walks helps bring people together and build stronger and more connected communities.
So Jane's Walk is a global community-led organization that has free walking tours across the world and across Lethbridge this year. It was started in 2007 in Toronto by the Friends of Jane Jacobs, and now many places across the world do it. Lethbridge has been involved since 2011. And we will have 9 walks this year on a variety of topics. It's a really good opportunity for Lethbridge residents to learn about the groups or organizations or the history of their community. For example, we have several walks that focus on historical elements of Lethbridge, whether that's the river valley, the development and history of certain neighborhoods. We also have walks that encourage biodiversity and gardening, so you could get to know other people who are interested in those topics. And then we also have some walks that highlight different city projects, such as touring the Waste and Recycling Center and having a tour of the new buses that are wrapped in public art to highlight this achievement for the public art of Lethbridge. So there's really something for anyone who's interested in those aspects of Lethbridge to check out this weekend. So I think around 200 people participated last year. So you can take a look at our website on Jane's Walk Lethbridge, and each of those have a different meeting location and time, and we'll tell you more about the details of each walk.
The Lethbridge Janes Walk runs May 1st to 3rd.
Sean Haney here with RealAgriculture.com. The federal government is officially putting food affordability at the heart of the regulatory process. In this week's Spring Economic Update, Finance Minister François-Philippe Champagne announced plans to amend both the Canadian Food Inspection Agency Act and the Pest Controls Product Act. The goal here? To force federal regulators to take food security and the cost of production into account when making decisions. This is the economic lens that the agricultural industry has been calling for. For the first time, the CFIA, their newly renamed Pesticides Regulatory Directorate, won't just be looking at safety in a silo. They'll be legally required to consider the impact on your bottom line as a farmer. The government is also backing this up with cash, earmarking $24 million to expand economic analysis at Health Canada. While the full details and timelines are still thin, the intent here is relatively clear. Ottawa is finally acknowledging that regulatory red tape directly impacts the price of food and your economic well-being. It's a significant policy shift that recognizes you can't have a secure food system if the regulatory burden makes it too expensive to actually produce. This is a start. There's still a long ways to go, but it's encouraging. For Bridge City News, I'm Sean Haney with RealAgriculture.com.
General Motors says it will spend $691 million on its St. Catharines propulsion plant to support production of its latest V8 engines for full-size trucks and SUVs. The automaker says the updates will make St. Catharines its third plant to produce the sixth generation of the engine, with production also based in Buffalo, New York and Flint, Michigan. The investment comes as tariffs imposed by the U.S. government have raised concerns about the future of Canada's automotive sector. GM Canada President Jack Uppel says in a news release, the investment confirms St. Catharines' role in one of its core vehicle programs for years to come. The Commission for Complaints for Telecom and Television Services says complaints about phone, internet, and TV services have surged 61% this year. Wireless issues made up most of the complaints, followed by internet and TV services. Billing problems, especially unexpected or incorrect charges, were the top concern, rising sharply from last year. The CRTC plans new rules to eliminate certain fees and make it easier for customers to switch providers. Is raw milk healthier than pasteurized milk? Well, it's a hot debate between dairy farmers, consumers, health advocates, and politicians. Since 1991, Health Canada has required all cow, goat, and sheep milk to be pasteurized before being sold to consumers. However, proponents of raw milk are pushing to make the unpasteurized product more widely available in the U.S. Meanwhile, health officials continue to warn about the potentially deadly germs that raw milk may contain.
We just got a tank full of milk. We're pumping the milk all across the way to their mixing tanks. From here into this machine, this is our pasteurizing machine. So right now we're making chocolate milk. This is all raw right now. So it gets pumped into this balance tank, travels through all these pipes and pumps. There's a heat exchanger which brings the temperature up. Whole milk, skim milk, low-fat milk. We pasteurize at 163, and it's a short amount of time. It's literally 20 seconds at that temperature, and then it's good.
There are regularly outbreaks linked to raw milk and also to products made with raw milk. The microorganisms in raw milk that are making people sick are organisms like Salmonella, like pathogenic E. coli, like Campylobacter, like Listeria monocytogenes. Those are probably the four big ones. These microorganisms are present in the farm environment, in the milking environment, and it's really like a statistical roll of the dice to see whether they get into raw milk or not. I think people that consume raw milk have a perception that they have health benefits from the raw milk, and somehow the pasteurization removes those health benefits. We know that pasteurization does destroy nutrients, but with respect to milk, it really doesn't destroy any nutrients in milk that are where milk is a significant source of those nutrients. There does seem to be a growing interest or a continuing interest in this country for people who want to consume raw milk to be able to consume it. Different states are able to legalize it, even though it's still illegal at the federal level. The challenge is, how do we design a system that produces raw milk that is of equivalent safety to pasteurization? And I don't think we can do it yet.
And now here is a look at today's markets.
The TSX was down 265 to 33,318. The Dow was down 280 to 48,861. The S&P 500 was down 2 to 7,135, and the Nasdaq was up 9 to 24,673. West Texas Intermediate Oil was up $8.51 to 108.44 US per barrel. Natural gas was up 4 cents to 2.64 US. Gold was down 52.23 to 45.4388 US an ounce, and silver was down 172 to 71.31 US an ounce. Feed wheat is at $8.63 per bushel. Barley is at $7.01. Canola is at $16.98, and corn is at $7.75 per bushel. Live cattle were up $4.20 to $252.67. Feeder cattle were up 20 cents to $372.27. Lean hogs are up 95 cents to $95.10 for the May contract. And the Canadian dollar was down over the past 24 hours and sits at $73.10 US.
Recapping one of the top stories we've been following today, the Bank of Canada decided to hold its key interest rate at 2.25%, but economic uncertainty could mean changes on the horizon. Governor Tiff Macklem warns that rates could rise or fall, but that'll depend on oil prices and U.S. trade actions. This comes as inflation rose to 2.4% in March. According to Stats Canada, that was driven largely by higher gas prices. Last year, Prime Minister Mark Carney set the consumer carbon tax to 0% and left the industrial carbon tax for the heavy emitters. But who really pays this form of carbon tax? And if Canada is the only one charging companies with this tax, could that chase away investment and hurt the economy? Ross McKittrick, senior fellow with the Fraser Institute, will answer those questions and more coming up. And we want to take a moment to say thanks to those of you who are watching our newscast on YouTube. Not only is our full newscast available there, but you can also get access to content on demand from our regular contributors like Brian Lilly and Dave Naylor. Right now, we're on a push to break that 50,000 mark in subscriptions, so if you haven't done so already, go to YouTube and hit the subscription button and ring the bell, and that'll ensure that you get notifications about all of our new content when it's posted. Also, when you see news happening in your community, be sure to send us an email at info@bridgecitynews.ca. And to find featured stories and interviews, go to bridgecitynews.ca.